Hey on my duck YouTube and welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. In today's video I'm going to be going over my Premier League predictions. I know they started tonight, but ultimately I don't think whatever result of that game is, it's going to have too much of an overarching impact on the overall season. As ever, let me know your your league predictions at the end of the season down below. And also, if you're new around here, do subscribe. We're on 196 subscribers, only 4 away from the big 200. We'll see if we can get that before the first international break of the season, shall we? We're going to start with 20th place, and I have got Sunderland. I wasn't convinced by the way that Sunderland earned promotion last season with a disastrous end to the season, yet managed to win the lottery of the playoffs, mainly because commentary can't cope with counter-attacking style of play, and then they also won the final within 95th minute. Reggie Labrie for me just isn't cut out yet for the Premier League, where sitting back and letting the opponent play, trying to score on the counter, that can have some quite dire consequences. They lost one of their best players as well in Joe Bellingham, and also Tom Watson had huge potential. They made some decent signings though, like Enzo Lafay on a permanent. Habib Diarra is definitely one for the future. Noah Sadiki can play anywhere in defence. Basically, all the signings, though, are young with potential, but that doesn't keep you in the league. You need experience and youth in combination. With the only experienced Premier League signing being Granit Xhaka, I just feasibly see the Black Cats returning straight to a championship. But if it can keep hold of their stars and some stability, and a return would definitely be on the cards. 19th, Burnley. This team has become a yo-yo club over recent years, and Scott Parker is the epitome of a manager too good for the Championship, but not good enough for the Premier League. So it comes as a surprise to absolutely no one that I have them to make an instant return to the Championship, yet again demonstrating how wide the gulf is. James Trafford will be a huge loss considering how many clean sheets he kept last season, and Dubravka has been backup keeper for most of his career and operates more of a sweeper keeper, something that is a bit risky in what I reckon will be a relegation battle. Max Weiss as well is definitely going to be a backup, so no, not a good option there either. For me, the squad is too big and they need to offload some players in order for them to improve. We know, for example, they don't have a strong centre forward who will reach double figures in the Premier League. I just don't think this side will be able to score enough goals to be able to stay up. 18th, Leeds United. We had a ridiculous situation at the start of the summer when Daniel Farke was tipped for the sack, and there is no smoke without fire, so to speak. Farke obviously hasn't got a good record to rely on in the Premier League, with his 2 seasons at this level resulting in relegation. The issue is they have now backed him, so things will get, when things I think will inevitably go wrong, there will actually be a real discussion over whether they do continue to back him or not. And you've got to back your managers at times, you know. Meslier, for me, is almost guaranteed to be sold this window, so the first choice will be the new signing of Lucas Perry, who has hardly ever been a first choice, and at 27, I would at least expected maybe a season of regular football, not or two maybe, not the 33 appearances for Lyon that he made before being demoted to third choice. Jayden Bogle is a player whose style does suit the Premier League, but I don't think has managed to make a statement at that level. So this season for me is a make or break, or whether he can crack it at this level. Goodmanson is a player who can operate as a left back, centre back, or midfielder who is a ball carrier. Whether he gets that time on the ball in the Premier League does remain to be seen, though. Ethan Ampadu has been tipped for years now to become a Premier League regular and kick on to being a mid-table player. But realistically, I've not seen it from a 24-year-old. Struijk is a towering centre-back who is much like Van Dijk, and realistically, I can see him being decent at this level. Joe Rodon blows hot and cold, who is invariably great at the Championship, but against some of those more complete forwards in the Premier League, he over-relies on his pace to get himself out of those situations, often leading to mistakes. Dan James is pacey, and again, I think he's inconsistent at the Premier League level. Sean Longstaff is only 27. It feels like he's been around for absolutely years, doesn't it? But he's gradually faded at Newcastle, where he was no longer relied upon to create something. So if he can rebuild himself at Leeds, they have a player there. Patrick Bamford was at one point a fantasy cheat code, but let's be realistic. Despite being given number 9, I don't think he'll be given the start. I'm excited to see if Joel Perot can cut it out at the Premier League level, as he's far too good for the Championship. Brendan Harrison was someone with a lot of hype when Leeds signed him and hasn't totally managed to live up to it, in my opinion. I think on their day, this whole Leeds side could be great, but over the course of the 38 game season, I suspect there will be too inconsistent, resulting in a narrow relegation. 17th, Newcastle United. This is by far the most unpopular opinion I may end up saying, but last season they were by far too over-reliant on Alexander Isak, who, even if he does choose to stay, I still think will have a far worse season due to not wanting to be at the club, and that does typically tend to happen, unfortunately. Aaron Ramsdale is always a curse on a club, even if he won't be number 1. Spending 55 million on Elanga is probably the most stupid fee I've ever seen. Fior hasn't even been a regular starter for AC Milan, and they are the only signings. If Isak does move on, who starts in centre forward? Is it Elanga playing out of position, who's predominantly a winger, or is it the Osler, who is far too out of his depth to be a regular centre forward, in my opinion? Also, last time Newcastle played in the Champions League, they had a really poor league season. Well, a relatively one anyway, finishing 7th, not even qualifying for Europe. But at least that season they had goals, scoring 85. Without the 23 goals from Isak last season, they would have been like 13th. I just feel this whole side will be dejected without their star player. And they have a few tough opening games as well. Got Aston Villa tomorrow, upcoming as well, Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest in their opening 7 games. We could see a really difficult start, and then we'll see the real characters in the dressing room, I suppose. Goals ultimately win games, and they've proven too reliant on one player for them, so I think they may end up facing the wrong way down the table and be distracted by Europe. 16th, West Ham United. I look at this side, and to be honest with you, it screams average. They lost one of their best players in Kudus, replacing him with Carl Walker-Peters, who is more of a wing-back than an out-and-out winger. They also released some of their better players in Antonio, Ings, Zuma, Fabianski, and Sufal. They have been replaced by Todibo, who I think is average at best. Cummins, who is 19, who's never made a senior appearance in his life. Callum Wilson, though, is more likely to be the starter up front, which is a decent option for a low mid-table side, as given he's a regular starter in the Premier League at his level, and probably scored double figures. Diouf is a huge risk, but so was Sufal at the end of the day, and that somehow worked out, so we will see with that one. Hermanson is a ball-playing goalkeeper who is decent shot stopping and penalty saving, but is incredibly injury prone. I look at this side and I think strong midfield, but I'm not convinced on more wingers. And although Graham Potter is fluid in his tactics and is comfortable to switch formations, he does like to use wing play quite a lot and focuses a lot on possession as well. I just think it won't be a horrendous season, but another mediocre mid-table one for the Hammers. 15th, Brighton and Hove Albion. They have lost their major goal threat from last season in João Pedro, and they've also lost Estupinan, who was pivotal in that wing-back role last season. And I'm not convinced on a replacement in Maxime de Cupia. And Costa-Lewis, I don't know how you pronounce that, only scored 7 goals in the Greek Super League last season, so won't score many at this level at all, I think. Tom Watson is young and pacey, but still incredibly raw, so it isn't surely a season for this, like a signing rather for this season, as he wasn't consistent last season with Sunderland. Diego Coppola is a good signing who, with his height, is a modern-day centre-back who is very tactical and good at distribution. Arguably just a more complete cash-in, as he's also good in positioning, marking, and anticipation. Therefore, probably marks the end of cash-in, really, with Brighton. You got Youndu Young, who is a winger known for dribbling, touch, speedy, and a wonderful left foot. So, very Brighton play in that one. Boscagli was one of the best defenders in the Eredivisie last season, but we do know that recent signings from the Eredivisie haven't always worked out in the Premier League. Welbeck is getting on at 34, and it looks, I think it does remain to be seen for me how regular he is this season. Rutter isn't a natural goal scorer, and I look at this side and just think they'll struggle to score goals at this season. And I've already mentioned goals will win games, and I'm looking at this side with no Pedro, Welbeck likely to be injured, or certainly not played all season, and it is highly likely this side will have a drop off this season for me. 14th, AFC Bournemouth. Andoni Areola is a fantastic manager, but that's going to be the problem because I feasibly think, having proven to be Bournemouth's best manager ever, that a side competing with top end of Europe could really take him, and maybe a team like Bilbao, where he spent most of his playing career and his affinity with the fans, could sort of poach him. Well, the success will then come in, and that will then become an issue. Because despite a great season, there's no European football as alert to sort of bring in really top end managers. And they'll probably turn it down at the end of the day, seeing the size of a stadium or whatever. It's not got great facilities all around. The thing with this side is it's just very much molded into one coach's image. They don't necessarily think another man can get the same kick out the side immediately anyway. So I think by the end of the season, we will naturally see Bournemouth return to where they expect to be in lower mid-table. 13th, Manchester United. Only a slight improvement in Manchester United, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Amorim sacked by the end of the season unless he wins a cup. Let's go through the expected starting 11. In goal, you got Altia Biyinda, who people say has to be better than Onana, but he's hardly started for Man U. The only thing is I just see him chosen over Onana because I don't think there's a worse goalkeeper in the Premier League than him. So that's already a fundamental weakness they have, right? They don't have a good goalkeeper. Diego Dallo is one of the only good players at Man United who is a strong fullback, capable of playing attacks, whipping crosses in, dribbles well, starts counter-attacks, has long passes in his locker, and is also strong defensively as he tends to win aerial duels. Mazraoui was woeful last season, often having to recover from his errors. De Ligt at one time was so highly rated and tipped to be one of the best centre-backs in the world in about 2018, that was. But let's be honest, since moving to Man United, he has failed to live up to this hype. Maguire, well, enough said, move on. He just needs to move to a new club, really. Fresh start for him is needed. Lisandro Martinez is too short to be a defensively solid option, getting beaten in the air more often than not. And his only strength really is that he can pick a pass. Manchester United have ruined Mason Mount's career, who at Derby and Chelsea really excelled with set piece delivery second to none, and he also loved to run towards players. Bruno Fernandes isn't captain material for me, but is one of a few good players left at the club, and everyone knows his ability to change a game. Now, I don't want to completely write him off, as he's only 22, but he got to have a standout season to make me change my mind. Cunha may have to take some of the burden off for youngster, and he did score 15 goals last season in a poor Wolves side, which at times were definitely over-reliant on him. And he can create opportunities to score from scraps, Xerxes must be the worst player to somehow play regularly for Man United, and that's quite a competition when you've got Fred and Pogba as options to choose from as well. As you can tell, none of the problems have been solved from last season, with only Cunha coming in of decent standard, meaning they may end up pushing slightly higher up the table, but still a very mid-table result. 12th, Brentford. For some reason, some people seem to have Brentford to be relegated in their predictions. Now, I know Keith Andrews isn't very experienced, but he's an internal appointment who works in the front for years. So I just sort of pick up from where Thomas Frank left off. Maybe a bit of a slower start, but that's it. In terms of losses, it isn't major as people make out. Yes, Flecken was probably one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world right now. But Kelleher is actually a shrewd signing because, yes, he's been to back up to Alisson mainly and has only made 67 games for Liverpool over, 5 or 6 years now. But he's kept in that time 24 clean sheets, achieving a record for most penalty shootouts saves with Liverpool at 6, and for most amount of penalty shootout wins at 4. So he's clearly a great shot stopper, and his distribution can improve. But at 26, still relatively young for a goalkeeper, and now has a chance to really prove himself at number 1. Christian Norgard's got a fantastic range of passes from defensive midfield, so again, another loss. And most notably will be Mbeumo, who off the right scored 20 goals last season. However, that was the only time during his time in the Premier League that he scored double figures, so he could actually just be a one-season wonder, let's be honest here. Igor Tiago may end up with a starting choice up front. So we'll see what he can do, because if you look at his time in 2023-24, he scored 18 goals with Bruges, so could provide a bit of a wonder kid. And it's still got Wieser as well if that doesn't work. He's an equally threatening goal, scoring 19 last season. And let's not forget how good he was. And even Kevin Shade as well scored 11 goals last season. Norgard has been replaced by Jordan Henderson, who comes in with tons of experience at his level, but I don't think he'll be a starter necessarily, even though he's given a starting number, because I think Onyeka, having a strong upper body strength and a great season alone with Augsburg last season, could come back slightly changing as well the way they play. I just look at this Brentford side and feasibly think that a mid-table side is where they roughly are. I just don't think they'll be anywhere near the relegation zone. 11th, Everton. David Moyes has been hugely successful at this level with both Everton and West Ham United, and he clearly has a strong connection with his club. I think it's highly likely for him to be in mid-table this season. You got Carlos Alcaraz being made permanent, and that's a huge one, as he's someone who can make a difference over a full season. Tierno Barry scored 11 goals last season, so maybe not the most prolific, but still a solid option up front. He's a typical target man. You got Kieran